My husband emptied my bank account and flew to Paris with his mistress and my 7-year-old son. 3 days later, my son called me crying. Mom, what did you do? My revenge was complete. Before we begin, tell me in the comments what city you're listening from. I'd love to know how far this story has reached. Now get ready. The blood was still fresh between her legs when she opened her front door and knew in the deepest part of her exhausted body that something wasn't right. Heather was 39 years old, a lawyer, mother, wife, survivor of cancer that nobody knew about except her. She had just left the operating room after a hysterectomy she'd postponed for months. She did it alone, paid for it alone, suffered alone. She didn't tell her son or her husband because she always believed that carrying others' pain was a form of love. That day, as soon as she got out of the taxi, the driver helped her with her suitcase. She smiled, that smile of someone who's grateful, even though her body trembles inside. The elevator smelled of disinfectant. A heavy sensation settled in her stomach. The key fit in the lock, but the house was empty. Empty not like when one goes to school and another to work. Empty like a tear in the fabric of reality. The silence slapped her. No sound from the TV, no coffee maker that her husband used to turn on as a morning ritual. No shouts from her son playing with his toy cars. Just that of frozen, thick, unbreathable air. And there it was on the dining room table, a sheet torn from her notebook, folded in half. The running ink, handwriting she'd recognize among thousands James's. Don't look for me. I took what belongs to me. He's better off with me. Heather didn't scream, didn't fall to the floor, didn't break anything, just stood there staring at that phrase as if it were a riddle, as if her brain, still drowsy from anesthesia, couldn't decode what she'd just read. Her body trembled. She walked awkwardly to the kitchen. Her son's cup wasn't there. The drawings on the refrigerator were gone. The school backpack had disappeared. No trace of her son's stuffed animal, the one he never let go of, even to sleep. She went straight to her office. Turned on the computer with clumsy fingers. Opened her online banking. Available balance, $0. Everything she had saved. Emergency funds. Insurance, scheduled transfers. Even the small movements she'd made weeks before to pay the hospital. Everything erased. The home security cameras disconnected. The app said no signal. She checked her cell phone. Not a single message from James. She tried calling him. Turned off. She tried the landline. Silence. She opened her email. Among hospital notifications and meaningless promotions, an automatic alert. Flight confirmation. Air France. Destination, Paris. Passengers, James Mitchell, Rebecca Collins, and Owen Mitchell. 3 names, 3 tickets. Hers wasn't there. She got up abruptly. Her body doubled over from the pain of the still fresh stitches in her abdomen. She leaned against the wall, swallowed, and then screamed. A dry, choked scream that wasn't human. It wasn't voice, it was a collapse. No, 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 she repeated like a desperate litany, searching for oxygen, understanding logic. She dialed Rebecca's number, her best friend, the only one who was with her at the hospital, who took care of Owen while she signed the surgery papers. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Voicemail. She dialed again. Voicemail. She called the school. Good afternoon, I'm Owen Mitchell's mother. Has my son been at school these days? No ma'am, we actually wanted to call you. His father informed us that you were traveling and that he would be in charge for a few days. He hasn't been back since Wednesday. Wednesday. That was the day of the surgery. That was the day Rebecca hugged her in the hospital room and said, "Don't worry, he stays with me. You don't worry about anything." The metallic taste of betrayal stuck in her throat. She went back to the living room, sat down. She hugged a pillow that still smelled like her son. She thought about the last time she saw him. She had kissed his forehead before Rebecca took him to sleep at her house while she checked into the hospital for the operation. "Are you going to be okay, Mommy?" the boy had asked with those big eyes. "Yes, my love, it's just a checkup. I'll be back in a few days. Rebecca's going to take care of you." "Yes. And Dad's going to be close by." Lies. She lied and they lied to her. She called James's father. He answered with a confused voice. "Heather, what a surprise. Do you know where your son is?" I suppose with you guys." He emptied my account. He took Owen. They flew to Paris with Rebecca. Silence on the other side. "Paris. Didn't you know?" He told me you were on vacation, that you were hospitalized for something minor." "My God." Heather hung up. Her body no longer responded. She called her gynecologist. Asked for something for the pain, for insomnia. She spoke in broken sentences. Didn't say everything. Barely murmured that she was alone, recently operated on, and without strength. The following days moved like a slow-motion film. Heather barely ate, barely spoke. She began looking for lawyers, reviewing documents, tracing a line between everything she hadn't wanted to see, between everything she accepted in silence. The signs were there, only now they shone with unbearable clarity. The idea that Rebecca, her lifelong friend, was involved was a parallel wound. Rebecca, her son's godmother. Rebecca, who made her soup while she trembled with fever from chemotherapy. Rebecca, who hugged Owen while she vomited blood in the bathroom. In a folder of old documents, Heather found something strange. A contract for her bachelor apartment, the one she'd never sold. According to the system, it had been sold 2 months ago. Signed by her. She never signed it. The document was forged. Then she understood. Everything had been premeditated. Rebecca, her friend James, her husband, had prepared. They had made the moves one by one with patience. They had lied to her face while smiling, while Owen played at their feet. And the worst part, they had taken him, her boy. What they did with the money hurt, but what they did with her son was unforgivable. The third day arrived like a cold wave. Heather tried to eat something, barely some tea. She showered for the first time in 48 hours. She walked through the empty house. She opened Owen's closet. There were still some toys. His favorite stuffed animal. A half-finished drawing. A notebook with scribbles where he had written, "Mom is a warrior." And then the phone rang, an unknown number, international. Her heart beat like a drum. She answered, trembling. "Hello." Her voice was barely a whisper. Silence. Agitated breathing on the other side. "Hello, who's speaking?" A sob. "Mom." Heather felt the floor disappear. "Owen, are you okay?" "Where are you, my love?" "Mom, what did you do?" The question pierced her soul. "What? What did I do? What did they tell you?" "Dad's angry. He says you left because you don't love us anymore. Rebecca says you're not coming back." Heather swallowed, leaned against the wall, fought not to break. "Listen to me carefully, my love. None of that is true. I love you. I love you more than anything in the world. They forced me to be far away, understand? I'm coming for you." "Why did you leave, Mom?" I didn't want to come. I'm going to find you, Owen. I promise. I'm not going to leave you there, but I need you to trust me." "Okay." The boy cried again. A muffled cry, as if he couldn't do it out loud. "I miss you." "Me too, my love. So much." Then the call dropped. Heather stood there, with the phone in her hand, staring at an invisible point. In that instant, something changed inside her. It wasn't anger, it wasn't hatred, it was a decision. James didn't know who he'd left behind. Rebecca didn't imagine what he'd awakened. The world would teach them that betraying a broken woman is dangerous, but betraying a mother, that is not forgiven. Heather took a deep breath while the receiver still hung from the cable. The constant beeping on the other side became an uncomfortable echo, as if the universe wanted to make sure she didn't forget that last phrase. "Mom, what did you do?" That whisper from her son, loaded with confusion, pain, and fear, haunted her like a chain around her neck. During the days that followed, she didn't sleep more than 2 hours straight. She didn't eat sitting down. She didn't allow herself to cry more than strictly necessary. She knew that if she truly broke, there would be no one left to pick up the pieces. Her body still burned from the surgery, but she had learned long ago that physical pain is much simpler than that of a carefully executed betrayal. She remembered James's words from 6 years ago when she still believed in eternal pacts. "When your firm takes off, I'll go back to work." "Yes, of course, honey. Just give me 6 more months." He never intended to keep it, and she took too long to understand it. #flashback. 7 years earlier, Heather had just given birth. She had left her position at one of the most prestigious criminal law firms in the country. A brilliant woman, fierce in court, feared by prosecutors and adored by her clients. But when Owen was born, everything changed. James had lost his job for the 3rd time in less than 2 years, this time due to unfair restructuring, according to him. Heather believed, as always, because for her, loving meant giving in, trusting, betting double even after having lost. "Don't worry, honey. We're going to be fine," she told him while hugging him. "I'll hold on, you just focus." James started his first tech venture, a luxury watch sales site. He used Heather's savings. It failed in 6 months. Then came a healthy food subscription business. More promises, more of her money, another unexpected closure. Then, a marketing consultancy for startups, his favorite because he used a lot of technical words. It seemed like he knew what he was talking about, but it didn't last. Nothing did. Each time he failed, she was the one who held the helm, looked for solutions, worked magic with the household economy, sold personal items, gave up small dreams. She did it without complaining, believing she was building something. A strong family, a shared future. The conversations became repetitive. And when do I go back to work? I swear it's almost time. I'm about to close a round with some investors. This is the one. And she, naive, trusted again because she still didn't understand that love can also be a form of self-deception. A year later, Owen started kindergarten. Heather began sending out resumes, excited to resume her career. But just then, James's mother fell ill. Advanced Alzheimer's. Who would take care of her? James couldn't, he said. He had too many meetings. It wasn't fair to pay for a nurse when Heather was at home. It's temporary, James promised one night. As soon as Mom is stable, we'll talk about it. Heather agreed because that's how she was, because that's how she'd been raised, because a good woman sacrifices. James's mother lived 3 more years. In the last year, she didn't even recognize Heather, but when she opened her eyes and looked at her, it was as if she knew, as if she sensed that this woman, the one who fed her, who cleaned her wounds, didn't do it out of duty, she did it out of something deeper. In that time, Heather lost job offers, important contacts, and little by little she lost her name. She went from being the brilliant criminal lawyer to James's wife, Owen's mom. Nobody asked about her achievements, only about her vegetable pie recipe. And still she never screamed. She didn't scream when James started going out at night with the excuse of business meetings, when he came back smelling of someone else's perfume, when he arrived late with wet hair, saying he'd been to the gym. She kept quiet, sensed, but preferred to think she was exaggerating. She didn't scream when she found a message on his cell phone by mistake from someone saved as Roger Accountant. The message said, "Are you going to leave her after the hospital thing, or are you waiting for her to sign the last document?" James had deleted the chat the next day. She pretended not to have read it. Her fear of facing the truth was stronger than rage. What she did do was go to the doctor because something inside wasn't right. She was bleeding too much. Constant pain, weight loss. The word appeared soon, tumor, urgent surgery. But she didn't say it, not even to Rebecca. "I'm just going to get some tests done," she told her, disguising her trembling voice. "Can you watch Owen on Thursday?" "Yes," Rebecca accepted. As always with that smile of, "I'm here for you." That same night, in front of the mirror, while adjusting the wig to cover the strands that were falling out in handfuls, she heard James in the living room. He was talking on the phone. The door wasn't completely closed. "I can't stand her victimhood anymore. She's always sick, tired. It's like she likes playing the martyr. I want to live. I want to get out of this house." Each word was a knife. But Heather said nothing. She closed the bathroom door, leaned on the sink, and held back tears. She couldn't make noise. Owen was sleeping. The next morning she made breakfast. She smiled at James. She stroked her son's hair and left for the hospital as if nothing had happened, as if she weren't dying inside. That was the real betrayal, having been silent for so long out of love that her body decided to scream alone. While the scalpel cut her womb in a sterile room, her husband was planning a trip to Paris with his mistress, with her best friend, with her son, and she didn't even know they'd taken him until she returned to an empty house. Heather mentally retraced every moment when she should have left and didn't. Every time she should have screamed and chose silence out of fear, guilt, that cultural poison that teaches women to endure so as not to destroy what they've built. She remembered once 2 years ago when they argued. Heather had asked for an afternoon off to go to an interview. James said he couldn't stay with Owen because he had a meeting. "Why is everything of yours important and mine isn't?" she asked. "Because I'm the one holding this house together, Heather. I'm the one trying something. I tried too, only you stopped me." He looked at her with contempt. "Are you going to start with your feminist lawyer speeches again? Please grow up." That day she decided not to look for interviews again. She thought it was better to avoid conflict, that her moment would come. Her moment never came. Heather walked through the house that dawn, touching each object as if it were part of a museum of betrayal. The picture they hung together after their honeymoon, the sofa where Owen learned to read, the desk where she hid her journals. She opened one, the first from when Owen was a baby. James came home late again. He told me traffic was impossible, but there was perfume smell on his shirt. I don't want to think badly. Maybe I'm exaggerating. I shouldn't ruin what we have over a suspicion. Owen said Mama for the first time. I told James. He barely smiled. He was busy with a call. Sometimes I feel like these moments don't matter to him. Today I thought about going back to the firm. I miss my name on a door. I miss defending someone being me. But I know that now what matters most is taking care of my own, taking care of his. Always taking care of everyone except herself. She closed the journal hard, opened the laptop, logged into her old work email. She still had access. Hundreds of emails, proposals for cases she rejected, invitations to conferences, collaboration offers, all ignored to be available for others. Heather no longer wanted to be available for anyone. The rage began to transform into a kind of ordered fire. It didn't burn, it illuminated. She opened a new folder, called an ex-colleague, told him enough. Heather, are you going to report him? I'm going to do everything, but first I'm going to know exactly who I'm dealing with. Do you need help? I need you to remind me who I was before all this. On the other side of the phone, silence. Then a soft laugh. You were the one who made judges cry with your closing arguments. The one who won cases nobody wanted to touch. The one who wasn't afraid of anything. Heather closed her eyes. Then it's time to come back. She hung up. The sun hadn't risen yet. She showered. Put on a white shirt, light makeup, almost professional, fixed her hair. She looked at herself in the mirror, not to look pretty, to recognize herself. The reflection was no longer that of a victim. It was that of a woman hungry for truth. Owen had called her with fear, they had lied to him, they had confused him, but he would also know who his mother was and what a mother can do when she has nothing left to lose. Heather sat in front of her laptop, as if she were facing a chessboard. Each open folder was a piece. Each old email, each forgotten document, each contact rescued from the past was part of a game she wasn't planning to lose. She wasn't looking for emotional revenge. She was looking for precision. No screaming, no scenes, just facts, evidence, and truth. The only thing that had never failed her until she blindly trusted the wrong people. The first step was simple. She located Adrian Ortega, her former colleague at the criminal law firm, a meticulous lawyer, obsessed with digital order. He used to save everything, including copies of contracts that had passed through Heather's hands during her years at the firm. She called him without beating around the bush. Adrian took only 3 seconds to recognize her voice. Heather, I thought you'd disappeared off the map. I want to talk to you in person. Do you have time today? Are you okay? I'm alive and I need you to help me discover something. It's not a case, it's personal. They agreed to meet at a discreet cafe in downtown Chicago, where nobody would recognize Heather from her old legal battles. She dressed soberly, without makeup, her face marked by the operation, lack of sleep, and something more powerful, a determination that gave her a different, dangerous beauty. Adrian greeted her with a mixture of nostalgia and alertness. It had been almost 7 years since he'd seen her, since she left the firm after Owen's birth. She looked him in the eyes without beating around the bush. I need to know if in the last 3 months you've seen my signature on any contract. Adrian raised his eyebrows. What kind of contract? Anything related to stocks, accounts, properties, real estate, whatever. He hesitated. Then he took out his tablet and started searching through his files. Heather didn't need to fake patience. She was contained like a volcano. After a few minutes, Adrian looked at her again. Here's one. 2 months ago. Sale of the shares you had in the renewable energy company. Remember that investment you made with us before leaving the firm? Perfectly. I didn't authorize any sale. Are you sure, Heather? I just got out of the hospital. James emptied my accounts and took my son. I'm sure. Adrian frowned and turned the tablet toward her. The document was signed. Date 8 weeks ago. Signature. Heather Mitchell, lawyer, mother, wife, and now officially betrayed. Heather enlarged the signature image. It was her name, her handwriting, too similar, but there was something, a curve in the stroke of the letter H. A small error, almost imperceptible, but she saw it because that signature wasn't hers, it was an imitation, a mockery. Adrian watched her carefully. Do you have any idea who could have done this? Yes, I have a suspicion. She didn't say more, she didn't need to. The second call was to her personal bank. There was something that didn't add up. The transfers that emptied her account were made from different devices. One from the home computer, another from an IP located at the clinic where she was operated on, another from a mobile phone never registered by her. Few people had access to all those places. Very few. Rebecca, the only one who had been with her at the clinic, the one who had access to her house, who knew her security number. Rebecca, her best friend since she was 17, who hugged her in the early mornings at the hospital saying, "Rest, Heather, I'll take care of everything. Even James if necessary." That phrase that in retrospect sounded like a cruel joke disguised as tenderness. Heather went back to her house and opened a box of memories. There was an old album with photos of both of them, young, idealistic, dreaming of changing the world. She laughed, a hollow laugh. Rebecca was her first friend in college. They shared an apartment, parties, defeats. When Heather started dating James, Rebecca was the first to say he was charming, but too charming, that something about him she didn't like. That man has a smile that doesn't commit, she told her once. Years later, Rebecca stole him. Heather remembered every phrase with which Rebecca disguised her closeness. I admire you so much, Heather. I wouldn't have endured what you've endured. That son of yours is mine too, you know. James is slipping away from you, Heather. Sometimes he doesn't see you, but I see you. There was an almost maternal condescension in those words. As if Rebecca felt superior for taking care of her, as if she enjoyed the place Heather gave her without realizing it. Heather turned on the computer, searched old emails for keywords, dates. She found a conversation between Rebecca and her, where Rebecca asked for access to her passwords, just in case, during the operation. Heather, weakened and trusting, gave them to her. She dialed the number. Rebecca answered on the second ring. Her voice always sweet. Heather, are you okay? I'm alive. Where are you? I'm with Owen. We're in a quiet place. James doesn't want us to contact you. He says you're very upset. Heather contained her rage. Were you the one who signed the stock contract? Silence. What? What are you talking about? Don't lie to me, Rebecca. I already know someone forged my signature, and only you had access to everything. More silence. On the other side, Rebecca was breathing with difficulty. Heather, I just wanted to help you. James said it was temporary, that you had authorized it verbally. Verbally from an operating room, with anesthesia in my body. Rebecca didn't respond. Why did you do it? You don't understand. James told me you knew, that you didn't want to continue with that investment, that you didn't care anymore. I just wanted to help you. Help me. Help me with what? To lose my son? To have my life stolen? James told me you were depressed, that you were unstable. I thought the best thing was for Owen to have a healthy environment. Heather stood silent. The words hit her, but didn't knock her down. It's healthy with you too. Healthy is taking him from his mother and lying to him. I love him, Heather, as if he were mine. But he's not. And you're not my friend either. You're an imposter. Rebecca broke into tears. I didn't plan it like this, it just happened. I felt seen with James. He listened to me. He made me feel important. You were always the strong one, the brilliant one, the perfect one. I was just on the side, always on the side. So you did it out of jealousy. I did it because I got tired of living in your shadow. Heather breathed slowly, controlled, as if each word formed part of a sentence. Listen to me carefully. What you did has consequences. This isn't a teenage fight. You used my signature, you accessed my accounts. You took my son. All of that has a name, and soon you'll hear it from a judge's mouth. Are you threatening me? No. I'm warning you because when a mother has lost everything, she's no longer afraid. She hung up. She didn't need to hear more. The closest monster wasn't James. Deep down, he was always a coward in Charmer's clothing. The real monster was Rebecca because she knew her, because she understood her, because she held her while digging her fall. That night, Heather read Owen's messages again, old photos, his small body hugged to Rebecca's, a poisoned bond, broken trust, and she understood something. It was no longer enough to take revenge. She had to disinfect everything from the root, break the game, recover her life and her son. The woman that James and Rebecca thought they'd left behind had just woken up, and she wasn't alone. She was with the truth, with the law, and with a fierce memory, the memory of every gesture, every word, every lie. The closest monster thought Heather would never see her coming, but this time she wasn't planning to close her eyes, or her mouth, or her heart. Heather had spent days not knowing what to call herself. She wasn't the wife, not anymore. She wasn't just the mother, although that still beat in her chest with animal force. She was a woman displaced from her own life, but she was also something more. She was someone who was beginning to recover memory. Identity instinct. Not the soft instinct that protects, but the one that acts when danger settles inside the house, sits at the table, and steals from you from within. She had made the decision to follow every trace, every crack through which Rebecca and James had entered. She had recordings of her calls, copies of the transfers, and thanks to a computer friend from the firm, she had access to the old family cloud. That shared platform that James had supposedly closed months ago. Apparently he hadn't closed anything, he had just hidden the access. Heather turned on her computer and connected the external drive where she kept all the legal and digital documentation of the case she was building. It wasn't enough to demonstrate the betrayal. She wanted to show its structure, the exact architecture of the deception. Because when you manage to understand how something was destroyed, you can rebuild it and prevent it from happening again. She logged into the cloud link. The design was old, familiar. A folder caught her attention. Owen's school. She expected to find schoolwork, maybe photos of presentations. She opened the file. Everything normal. Drawings, scans, the occasional video. Then she scrolled down to a folder without a name. The icon had last month's date. 6/17. It was the day she was still admitted to the clinic with fever and drains connected to her body. Heather hesitated but clicked. Inside, a single subfolder. Just us. She opened it. The screen filled with images. The first was a nighttime photo under a starry sky. James and Rebecca embraced on a terrace, smiling. Owen was sleeping in her arms. Behind them, the Eiffel Tower illuminated. The image had a warm, romantic, almost unreal filter. Heather felt her stomach twist, but she didn't stop. She kept going. More photos, walks through squares, dinners with wine, Owen in the middle of both, as if they were a family. In one, James was kissing Rebecca on the cheek while the boy looked elsewhere with a strange expression. He wasn't smiling, he seemed absent. Heather enlarged the image. Owen's look wasn't that of a happy child. It was an absent, forced look. She knew that expression. Owen hated photos. He only let himself be photographed when she made him laugh with an absurd joke. Here his face was a mask. And then, in one of the images, the detail changed everything. Rebecca was wearing a red dress. Around her neck hung a small white gold necklace with a dark sapphire. Her mother's necklace. Family heirloom. An antique piece that Heather had kept since her adolescence, hidden in a small velvet box at the back of her closet. She never lent it, never lost it. She ran to the bedroom, opened the closet, pushed aside the boxes, broke open the hidden drawer. Empty. She went back to the image. There was Rebecca, smiling under the Parisian moon, as if wearing that jewel was her right. Heather felt something she had never felt before. It wasn't rage, it wasn't sadness, it was something born between the bones, a physical truth, a certainty. This wasn't an affair, it wasn't an emotional fall, it wasn't an accident, it was a cold, methodical, carefully executed plan. She sat on the floor, let her body lean forward. She didn't cry, she couldn't. Not anymore. What she felt had no outlet through the eyes. She had trusted Rebecca so much that she had given her the keys to her house, her son's secrets, the pains she couldn't tell anyone else. Rebecca had used them as pieces in a game she didn't even know she was playing. And James had waited until she was weakened with her body open in an operating room to take the little he hadn't yet taken. Her son. The image of the child, trapped between both of them, with a disconnected look, became an obsession. Was he okay? Were they doing him psychological harm? Rebecca was manipulating him. James was using him as emotional currency to maintain his lie. She grabbed the phone, called her contact in Paris. A French lawyer she knew from the past, Lucien Peretti. They were allies on a case a decade ago. Lucien was meticulous, reserved, loyal to death. Lucien, I need your help. They're in Paris, my ex-partner, my son, and a woman, my friend. They literally took him from me. I have proof of everything. I don't know how, but I need to know if they're okay. If Owen is okay. Lucien didn't ask useless questions. Send me everything you have. Photos, email, videos, tell me names, addresses, I'll get you what you need. She hung up. Heather assembled a compressed folder with all the evidence. While the files were loading, she looked at the cloud folder again. She entered the metadata of the files, the names of the source devices. She discovered that some files had been uploaded from her own laptop weeks before the operation. Others from a mobile she didn't recognize, and others from a device labeled LT Rebecca. It was official. Everything had been done with premeditation from before Heather even knew she had to enter the operating room. They had already planned it. While she thought about surviving, they thought about how to take everything from her. She received a message. It was Lucien. An attached file, security camera recording from Hotel Firenze, Paris. Date June 21st. Heather hit play. Blurry lobby images. There they were, James with sunglasses, Rebecca with a wide-brimmed hat, Owen between them. They walked like an established couple. She touched James's shoulder with familiarity. They were laughing. She was pushing the boy's suitcase. In the next video, Owen was walking alone through the hotel hallway. He had an Inter Milan t-shirt, but his expression was the same, turned off, as if he didn't want to be there, as if he knew everything was wrong but didn't know how to say it. Heather felt something inside her break. Instinct screamed at her that her son wasn't okay, that although he had no bruises, they were silencing him, that they were telling him another story, one where she, his mother, was the villain. And that was the most unforgivable. James could have betrayed her. Rebecca could have stolen whatever she wanted, but lying to Owen, giving him a manipulated version of love, making him believe that his mother had left, had abandoned him, was destroying him from within. Heather closed the laptop, looked at herself in the window's reflection. The scars still marked her abdomen, but there were other invisible scars, deeper, more recent, that didn't close with stitches or medicines. She got up, went to the bathroom, opened the medicine cabinet, threw away all the painkillers, all of them. She washed her face with ice water. Then she sat down to write. She drafted a document of more than 20 pages, a report with evidence, descriptions, chronologies. She built a file with surgical precision. She titled it, Emotional Kidnapping, Family Fraud, Manipulation of a Minor. Each word was a step toward recovering her son and herself. Heather was no longer just a betrayed woman, she was a mother at war, a woman who had seen the core of deception, who had understood that it's not enough to want, you have to be ready to protect what you love, even from those who claim to love you. That night, while Paris slept, Heather finished drafting the lawsuit. She loaded each image as evidence, and when she finished, she took a deep breath. It wasn't rage, it was clarity. And that clarity was the most dangerous thing Heather had had in years, because she finally knew exactly what to do. And this time she wasn't going to fail. Heather turned off the office light with a serenity that seemed alien to the emotional disaster of recent days. The legal file was ready, the complete report, organized evidence, captures, transfers, the photo with her mother's necklace, everything numbered, classified, contextualized. She had spent more than 20 hours putting it together. Without pauses, without hesitation. Not even her body, still aching from the operation, managed to stop her. That dawn was different from all others. She didn't feel anguish, didn't feel sorrow, only a dense, deep, almost dangerous calm, as if something in her had clicked, as if her entire emotional structure had mutated. She was no longer the Heather who asked permission to breathe. She was another, an exact, refined, unbreakable version. The woman who feared bothering had disappeared, the one who doubted whether her pain was valid, the one who justified absences and excuses. And in her place was the one who never trembled in a trial, the one who used words like knives, the one who knew that there are battles won in silence. Before leaving, she went to her bedroom drawer. She looked for the sealed envelope she had kept before getting married. Nobody knew it existed, not even James. There was the trust contract that her grandmother had left her. A reserved fund outside of any legal union, protected under a different name. A secret safety net, designed to be used only if everything fell apart. Everything had fallen apart. The morning surprised her signing the documents to activate the movement of that money. She hired a discreet financial consultant specialized in international litigation. She didn't need the media to know, nor the family, nor old colleagues. She just needed precision. While the country woke up, she already had on her desk a list of lawyers in Paris, private investigators, experts in cross-border family law. It was a complete, efficient, lethal network. She dialed Lucienne Peretti's number, her ally in Paris. I need you to assemble a discreet team. I want the best for a trial, for a restitution. Of course. Lucienne understood the subtext. Heather wasn't asking, she was directing, like in her best days. I have someone. Giovanna Maletti, family lawyer, expert in complex custody cases. Relentless, you'll like her. Heather nodded, knowing that on the other side Lucienne would understand even without seeing her. 2 hours later she received a video call. Giovanna, an elegant woman in her 50s with a marked Italian accent and eyes that seemed to scan the soul. Heather, welcome. I read your report. You weren't exaggerating. This is a case that can't be resolved with a couple of hearings. It's deep, toxic, and dangerous for the minor. I don't want impulsive revenge. I want something they can never forget, said Heather without blinking. Giovanna settled in her chair. Then we'll do what we know. We're going to use the law like a scalpel. Precise, painless at first, but when it starts cutting there will be no way to stop it. During the following weeks, Heather stopped talking to everyone. She cut contact with her father, with the few friends who hadn't betrayed her, even with her therapist. She needed silence, cleanliness, coldness. She spent nights reviewing jurisprudence on child abduction, on parental manipulation, on identity fraud between spouses. She studied the French judicial system as if it were her final law exam. And the more she read, the more she confirmed something she already sensed. James and Rebecca weren't improvising. They had built a narrative to protect themselves. They had given notices to schools, neighbors, even the pediatrician. Heather is unstable, stressed, confused. They were preparing the ground for future full custody, eliminating her little by little from Owen's emotional map. But they made a mistake. They underestimated her ability to rebuild herself. Heather hired an ethical hacker, young, brilliant, obsessed with details. I need to track bank movements, device connections, emails, everything they've sent or received in the last year. Especially since Rebecca started coming to the house more often. The guy, barely in his 20s, looked at her with silent respect. Do you want me to play dirty? No, I want you to play like them. Only you're going to win. For days, the young man sent her reports, emails crossed between James and Rebecca with internal codes, deleted conversations, private photos, digitized documents with her forged signature. And in the middle of everything, an audio. It was Rebecca. She was talking to James. Don't feel sorry for her. She was always smarter than us, but she's not anymore. She's sick, weak, anesthetized. This is our window, James. It's now or never. Or do you want to go back to living like her shadow? Heather listened to that audio in the darkness of her living room over and over. Not out of pain, for strategy. She knew that was the most powerful emotional evidence she could use, because there wasn't just legal fraud, there was intention, there was contempt, there was planning. Her son was growing up between those voices, and that was what she wasn't going to allow. In her nightmares, Owen looked at her from a long hallway in a foreign hotel with empty eyes. He didn't run toward her, didn't say Mom. Just watched her as if she were a blurry figure, as if he no longer remembered her well. She woke up drenched in sweat, with a tight chest and hands searching for the stuffed animal her son had left on the bed before leaving. But she didn't cry. She got up, went back to the desk, kept going. The last piece of her plan was emotional. She knew James was all ego. Image. She needed a perfect trap, one he wouldn't see coming. So she wrote an email. Just one, cold, precise, sent from a new account without a name. I know where you are, I know what you did, and I'm not interested in talking to you. I just want Owen. I'm not going to beg. I'm not going to negotiate, but if I don't hear him again in the next 72 hours, I promise you the truth about you and Rebecca will come out. And it won't be in a courtroom, it will be in the media, with photos, with audios, with evidence. You have one option, just one. She didn't sign, didn't ask for a response. James took less than 3 hours to reply. Heather, please, we can talk. This got out of hand. Owen misses you. Don't do this to me. Don't expose him. She smiled. Not out of satisfaction, out of confirmation. He knew he'd lost control. That night, Heather showered slowly, put on soft music, dressed in a white shirt and dark pants. She made coffee. Then she sat in front of the computer. The time had come. The legal team in Paris was ready. Lucienne had secured an urgent hearing with the family court. The report was submitted. The audios translated, the evidence organized. The first hearing was in 72 hours. Heather was going to travel. For the first time since everything began, she looked at her reflection without looking for signs of defeat. There was no trace of the woman who woke up alone after surgery and found her house empty. Only a new figure remained, firm, silent, lethal. And it wasn't revenge she was looking for, it was justice. And this time she wouldn't tremble, because when calm comes after chaos, it doesn't leave. It settles in and makes you something the world doesn't know how to face. The plane landed at 6:20 in the morning. Paris still slept behind a gray and melancholic mist. Heather descended from the flight with a firm gaze, contained breathing, and a thin folder in her hands. Inside, the unwritten sentence she was coming to execute. She wasn't a tourist, she wasn't a mother coming to beg. She was a woman who had learned to destroy without raising her voice. The international lawyer she hired was waiting for her at the exit. Salvatore Messina, a man of few gestures, measured voice, and chilling efficiency. Beside him, Julia Farrow, a social worker appointed by the juvenile court, young, firm, and with one of those gazes that pierced the soul. Mrs. Mitchell, Salvatore greeted, shaking her hand. Everything is prepared. The judge received the report this morning. The order is signed. We're just waiting for you. Then let's go. They got in the car without wasting time. During the journey, Heather observed the city without seeing it. The old buildings, the narrow alleys, the tourists with cameras, everything was an alien backdrop. Her mind was elsewhere, in a 5-star hotel in the historic center, where James had reserved a double suite weeks before disappearing, a reservation made with her card, with her money, where he settled with his mistress and her son, while she still bled in a hospital bed. The car stopped in front of a beige stone structure. Hotel Firenze, elegant facade, white-gloved doorman, impeccable staircase. Heather got out without looking at anyone. The folder in hand, her face in silence. They entered without being announced. They went up the elevator directly to the breakfast lounge on the second floor. Salvatore gave the order by radio to the local police waiting at the entrance. Julia prepared her credential and the provisional child removal form. When the elevator doors opened, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and baked bread filled the air. But Heather didn't perceive aromas. She only heard the sound of a familiar laugh. That laugh. Rebecca. There they were. James reading the newspaper, feigning a life that didn't belong to him. Rebecca, dressed as if she'd just woken up in a romantic movie. Owen with his head down, pushing a fork around his plate. Heather didn't walk, she glided. Her steps were blades on the carpet. Nobody saw her coming until she stopped in front of the table. James Mitchell, you are accused of fraud, international child abduction, and identity theft. The Paris Juvenile Court has issued an arrest warrant and immediate restitution of the minor Owen Mitchell. The silence was absolute. James raised his head as if waking from a dream. Rebecca jumped up, spilling coffee. You can't do this here. Heather looked at her, her eyes like two frozen blades. I already did. The show is over. The diners began to watch. Some discreetly recorded with their phones. The scene was cinematic. Salvatore approached and handed the documents to James. 2 police officers entered from the left. Julia approached the boy who had left his fork midway. Her voice was soft without tremor. Owen, I'm Julia. Your mom has come to get you. Shall we go with her? Yes. Owen looked at her, then slowly turned toward Heather. His eyes opened wide. His lower lip trembled. Mom! Heather felt the entire world stop at that word. She crouched down, opened her arms. Owen ran toward her with a choked cry. He threw himself at her neck. He was crying with his whole body. I knew it. I knew you were going to come. I told myself every night. I promised myself I knew it. Heather hugged him without saying a word. She just held him. She stroked his head, kissed his forehead, breathed in his fear, gave him back his home. James tried to get up. Rebecca screamed. This is abuse. She's sick. The boy is manipulated. Julia raised her hand calmly. We have certified medical reports, psychological evaluations, legal and criminal evidence. Your defense will be heard in court. Right now you're under police custody. Salvatore connected a flash drive to his laptop, turned the screen toward the officers. An audio played. Rebecca's voice. Don't feel sorry for her. She was always smarter than us, but she's not anymore. She's sick, weak, anesthetized. This is our window, James. It's now or never. Then a video. James signing documents with Heather's forged signature. Another recording. The exact moment when Owen said with clumsy handwriting, Mom, I miss you. Dad told me you didn't want to see me. James collapsed in his chair. Rebecca tried to leave the lounge. An officer intercepted her at the door. The French ambassador's wife present at the place murmured something quietly that several heard. Nobody intervened. Heather stood up, took her son's hand, left the place without looking back. Outside, the Paris sky had cleared. The car was waiting. She got in with Owen without saying anything. Julia was beside them. The boy cried silently as if his soul hurt. Heather took his hand. It's over. I'm here. Nobody else is going to touch you. Owen looked at her. Are you going to take me with you? You were always mine. I just came to remind you. The car moved through the ancient streets. Heather pressed the documents, the audios, the evidence against her chest, everything she needed to gather to prove that she was never crazy, that she was never weak, that she was never an absent mother. She was just a betrayed woman until she woke up. Hours later, in the family court, the judge read the documents, observed Owen, listened to the testimonies. When he gave the ruling, he didn't use complex language, he just said, the child returns with his mother immediately. She is his only safe environment. Heather didn't celebrate, didn't smile, just breathed. For the first time in weeks, she breathed. Rebecca was detained by police to testify in relation to fraudulent use of documents. James would face charges for fraud, international child abduction, and manipulation of funds. But none of that mattered to her. She already had him. That night, in a small hotel room outside the center, Heather sat on the bed. Owen slept hugging her side with his hand tangled in her blouse, as if he feared she would disappear. Heather stroked his hair. She didn't say anything, didn't need to say it. She had survived. And more than that, she had returned with him. And not because the world was fair, but because she had learned to be unstoppable. Months later, The wind that brushed her cheek no longer brought the sensation of urgency or pain. It was just wind, clean, without face, without name. In front of her, the sea breathed calmly, dragging soft foam that hit the rocks with an almost maternal cadence. Heather watched that shore every morning as if it were a mirror. She wasn't looking for answers, wasn't looking for forgiveness. She just recognized herself. Almost 5 months had passed since she left Paris with Owen. 5 months since she crossed the courthouse door with her son in her arms, while James was escorted by 2 officers to a police car. 5 months since Rebecca was summoned for identity forgery and illegal access to protected assets. She hadn't heard from them again, not for lack of information, but by choice. Heather didn't return to her house, didn't recover her old routine. She sold the apartment, left behind the furniture, the photos, the books, the walls that once contained laughter that now only seemed like hollow echoes. She chose the north of the country, the coast of Maine, a discreet shore where nobody knew her, where the past had no name or address. She rented a cabin facing the sea, small with only 2 bedrooms, lightwood walls, and a kitchen where Owen painted more than they cooked. There was something in that isolation that rebuilt her. She didn't need to talk to anyone, didn't need to explain herself. She had learned that rebirth isn't loud, it has no applause. It's a quiet, slow, intense, private construction. Every night she read aloud to her son. New stories, others invented by her. Owen had gone back to sleeping hugging his stuffed animal. He no longer woke up crying. He no longer clung to her arm like a castaway in the middle of a storm. His breathing had become deep, without starts. His laughter more frequent. Every time Heather heard him laugh, she felt a part of herself return to its place. That noon, while she hung clothes in the sun, Owen came out to the garden with a branch in his hand and dirt between his nails. He looked at her with that mixture of seriousness and tenderness that only children who have lived too much can hold. "Why don't you hate them?" Heather slowly lowered the sheet she was holding and looked at him. There was no surprise in her eyes, only that calm of hers, dense, deep, as new as the sea in front of her house. "Because if I hate them, they still have power over me." Owen didn't speak, just watched her as if he didn't expect that answer, as if a part of him wanted to hear something harder, more vengeful, but also as if something inside him was relieved. Heather approached, crouched to his height, and cleaned the dirt from his face with her open palm. "Do you want to plant something with me?" The boy nodded. She went to the shed, took out an old pot, fertile soil, a small shovel, and 2 lemon tree seeds. They sat on the ground. The sun hit their backs. "Things take time, but they grow. Like us." Owen buried the seed with his finger, and then covered it with a layer of moist earth. He didn't say anything, but he smiled. And in that smile there was something new. It wasn't innocence, it was trust. The kind of trust that's built when someone comes back to find you after they've torn you from your world. The following days were gentle. Heather no longer used alarms, no longer checked emails every hour. She closed her social networks, changed her number, stored all legal documents in a safe she hadn't opened in weeks. She no longer needed to review each piece of evidence, no longer needed to listen to each audio. The truth had done its job, and now silence took its place. One night, while Owen slept, Heather went out to the porch. The sky was clear. Stars fell over the sea like distant embers. She walked barefoot on the sand, feeling how each grain reminded her that she was here, alive, whole despite everything. Upon reaching the shore, she put her hand in her coat pocket. She took out a small metallic object, held it between her fingers. It was her wedding ring. She hadn't worn it since James disappeared, but she hadn't thrown it away either. Until now. She looked at it one last time. "This doesn't mean anything," she said quietly, as if talking to a shadow. And she threw it into the sea. The sound was barely a whisper in the water. The object disappeared, and with it an entire stage. Not a symbolic closure, not a theatrical catharsis. A real ending. Heather took a deep breath. She stood there looking at the horizon until her feet sank into the sand, until the cold began to rise up her legs. And when she returned home, she didn't turn on any lights. She got into bed next to her son, kissed his forehead, and slept without dreaming. Weeks later, Heather received a certified letter. It came from the Paris courthouse. The envelope said, "Case closure." Inside, a sealed sheet signed by the family judge. Full custody. Case closed. James had agreed not to appeal. Rebecca had not presented a defense. Both remained under judicial observation in their respective countries. They would not be allowed any contact with Owen without legal authorization. Heather read the letter only once, then stored it without drama. She knew it didn't give back what she'd lost, But she also knew it no longer mattered, because it wasn't about winning a battle, it was about something deeper. Heather had stopped living to be chosen. She stopped begging for affection, justifying absences, allowing her generosity to be turned into weakness. She had understood, after an entire life giving everything, that her mistake wasn't trusting, it was being silent when they started stealing parts of herself. Sometimes to be reborn, you have to burn the story to the foundations. Not clean, not organize. Burn. Watch it fall, smell the smoke, feel the emptiness, and then start again. Heather's story didn't end with a perfect family photo. There was no reconciliation. There was no Sunday table where everyone made peace. What there was truth, justice, and an indestructible certainty. She would never again allow someone to decide for her. She didn't seek revenge, she found balance. She didn't want to prove strength, she simply discovered it. And when nobody believed in her, she chose to believe in herself. The story didn't end with a happy ending. It ended with something more powerful. It ended with a new Heather. And this time, nobody could erase her. What did you think of this story? There are many people who, like Heather, are living silent battles every day. Our hope is that her voice has also resonated within you. If this story touched your heart, share it. Make more people feel accompanied. Be part of the change. Tell us in the comments what you would have done in her place, what city you're watching from. Reading you makes us feel closer to you. And if you haven't done it yet, like, subscribe, and turn on the bell. Each gesture of yours is a sign that these stories must continue to be told. Don't leave yet. Our next moving story is already appearing on your screen. Click on any of them and keep exploring this universe of real, moving, and necessary stories. Thank you for being here. Thank you for feeling with us. We send you a huge hug wherever you are. See you in the next one.